Hello, welcome everybody. I'm being joined today by Greg Wurth. Greg is a Grammy-nominated Gold and Platinum award-winning producer working as manager and chief engineer at LA's Mothership Studio and Patagonia Studio. His credits range from Steve Vai and Tony McAlpine to Tracy Guns to Jim Florentine, Don Jamieson to cellos and Mary J. Blige. He has been Steve Vai's engineer for 10 years. Greg and Steve have employed our Aurora converters for all projects since 2008. So Greg, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciated.
Yeah.
So the first question I always ask is, why do you do what you do? What's the background of you being a recording engineer and producer?
Well, playing music wasn't a natural thing. I love music, and I tried to play guitar and things like that. And it wasn't there. It didn't resonate with me as much as controlling sounds overall and making other people sound better.
You know, we were talking last night about what an intensive process it is for Steve Vai to select ingredients for his studio. So could you speak a little bit about the process by which you chose the Auroras as the converters to use there?
Yeah, we spent a long time comparing everything that's out there because, everybody says this is the best or that's the best, and they have their own opinion and experiences. So I just contact all the companies and get everything in place so that we can do a proper test in our environment. And when we chose the Lynx, it was time. We were getting a new rig, upgrading the studio, and just with the test that we had, it felt like I was telling you last night, it just felt like my pillow. Like it felt natural. Like what I was listening felt comfortable to me. Everything else sounded pretty good, but that was just like home, Yeah. And that's why we chose them. And they're solid, and they just work.
So did you bring up some mixes that you knew well and just compare them with different DAWs?
Yeah, I mean, we recorded fresh stuff, but we also played stuff that we're very familiar with, and it translates well, It doesn't color the sound in a way that is negative, It's just, It enhances all the frequencies. You can hear everything with a lot of depth and clarity.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal because, we spend all the time recording and all this money on equipment and stuff, and you want the converter to actually capture that the best that you can.
So a lot of Steve's stuff is really dense. There's a lot of, it's very notey. It's technically proficient. So you can speak a little bit about how the converter helps capturing all that nuance and why the converter matters.
Yeah, because, sometimes we'll use like tube amps or tube microphones, ribbon mics, different tones of mic pre's, and everything has its own color. And what's great about the Auroras is it just captures that exactly what it is.
You get a sound that is very broad, but also very detailed. And so maybe we should play an example of one of the Steve Vai pieces.
Okay.
This is a piece on the Steve Vai record called The Moon and I. And you want to set it up a little, like how the piece came to be and the background of it?
Well, the song, Steve records like everything live on his shows, and on sound check he'll do these jams and he'll just make up little riffs and licks, and this song came from a sound check, and we actually brought it to life, and he compiled a guitar solo, which is one of my favorite guitar solos that he's done since probably Passion and Warfare era. And he's known for using these deep delays and reverbs and stuff, and this in the studio, when we mix it, just the depth of the effects, it just was so clear to me, and those converters were a major part of allowing that to be heard, and you can hear it in the record.
Yeah, it really sounds great. All right, let's go ahead and run that.
Can you guys hear that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good example of having space and depth but also very articulate. You know,
Yeah,
it's very,
'cause
very nice.
There's a lot of layers on the tracks. You know, it's upwards of 100+ kind of
Yeah.
thing when we're doing records with Steve.
You do a lot of different acts. You do some pop things and other sorts of acts. And so, how do you approach the artist? Like when you hear something that's different from the last project, how do you approach it differently to make sure it comes out?
I just like to talk with those musicians and see what their vision is for their sound, because no one knows better than them, and what they want to hear and what's their influences, and I just try and deliver that best to their vision.
The act Boom 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 that you worked with is very different from Steve Vai's music, so
Yeah.
maybe we'll play a little of that as well, and why don't you set that up for us? Like, what's the band? And
Yeah,
how
they're a very unique style. You can't really pin them on one genre. They're, you know, a combination of blues, hip hop, jazz, R&B, funk, reggae, and you know, their drums is based around a cajon with percussion and cymbals and snare, so it's not like a traditional setup. Upright bass. They got piano player on the side, and so it's very organic. And they recorded this live in the studio. You know, there was room mics, and blending everything was really a challenge. I'd never worked on anything quite like this, so I'm really happy with how it came out.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and run that.
In my head when I sleep, my thoughts are all at peace. But where am I to find the peacefulness I seek? I'd give up everything to live life peacefully. In my head, in my head, in my head, I dream of light. In my head, I dream of light. In my head, I dream of light. Da 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 da. Ya da da. Ya da da da. Da da da. Ya da da.
Yeah, I think it's everything has its place in the spectrum, and it's very, you know, detailed. You can pick everything out very clearly.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you put into it, it just accentuates, you know. And like this is way different than, you know, like Steve Vai project, where like that's heavy low end emphasis, and you know, the top end is a little different. So you need to really, you know, get a different sound there. And it was difficult because with the cajon, I mean, it's hard to get low end, and I didn't record that, so it was like I had to get very creative in getting that low end out, and you know, the converters were able to just translate that.
So what's the process like from demo to final mix when you're interacting with an artist for the first time like that?
It depends on where they're at with the music that is brought to me. Sometimes they just have like these garage recordings that are just very bare bones, or they got like all these guitars stepping on each other, and I have to really try and, you know, understand them as people, because I don't want to insult them, because a lot of times musicians it's their music, that's their baby, so I got to try and bring out the best in that, but also explain sometimes you have to pick and choose and make a compromise with parts, you know, because the arrangements are very important, especially for mixing, because, you know, the less things battling with each other, the larger the sound is, and just the more clean, and there's more clarity and separation in the tracks that way.
Yeah. So you started a new project of videos called Into the Studio, where you're helping kind of new engineers and so forth. So why don't you speak a little bit about that, what that's all about?
Yeah, just, you know, I've gotten a lot of people, they look up to me for advice on gear and stuff from my experiences, and I enjoy sharing that. So I decided I started my own video channel called Inside the Studio with Greg Wurth, and it's just fun, you know. I like to just show video of using some gear, just demonstrating what it sounds like, not particularly trying to tell you how to use it, but just giving you an example of how it sounds. And I like to take the lids off and show the insides of the gear, because that's my thing, you know. I like gear porn. I'm not a guitar player, you know, but so I love looking at all the guts and all that stuff, and you know, I try and keep it fun. Lisa Marie's on the channel with me, and we do a lot of giveaways, because it's fun, you know. If I demonstrate a plugin or something, you know, I'll help. That's promoting the company, and you know, they're giving payback by just giving those away for people, you know, and just it's fun. Trying to create like a community, because you know, I don't think sharing knowledge takes anything away from me. So I do it because I love music, and I want to help people do music on their own as well.
Yeah, it's great. So how would people find it?
Well, you can go on YouTube. It's youtube.com/Greg Wurth is my channel, and my website is greg-worth and you can get the videos there. And I have a newsletter you can sign up for for giveaways and things like that.
What new projects are coming up? What are you doing with Steve? What's coming up for the next year or two for you?
Yeah, it's pretty busy. We're working on a Passion and Warfare 25th anniversary release with Steve, so we're about gaining on a year in on that, and it's fun because he's signed back with Sony, so there's a budget, and we're doing things very, correct, and we're going back and finding actual music from that time that was never released, and we're bringing some musicians from that era. And they're playing songs that just never were finished. So I think it's going to be a really cool record for fans of him. I'm a huge gear geek guy, and I didn't plan on it, but I actually designed a summing mixer that I'm now selling. And it kind of was a happy accident because I had one designed for me, and a lot of people took notice to it. And it's, Steve Furlot from Inward Connections and Tree Audio is a close friend, and he designed it based on my specs. And he just said, everybody's coming in his shop asking to buy one, and he's like, you got to sell these. And so that's going to keep me busy as well. And I have to say it pairs perfectly with the Aurora, because it's a 16-channel summing mixer, and I get a little bit of color from that, and so it's just a perfect pairing.
Yeah, nice. Well, I wish you all success with that, and I just want to thank you for joining us today, and thanks for everything, Greg.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it. All right, thanks.